Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Your Spiritual Journey. This is Dr. Bob, and this is the space and the place where we talk about things important to your soul. As always, we appreciate it if you like us, if you'll subscribe, and maybe even support us on Patreon. Well, today, we have a familiar face coming back to join us. Ann Heitzel was on episode 108, and this is 149. So it's been a little while since we've touched base with her. But she has so much going on in her life that we weren't able to cover everything in depth at the last discussion. So I'm going to ask Leanne just to give us a short catch-up history here. In fact, Leanne, I'll use a little bit of your bio here, and then you can fill in for us.
Okay.
Because what we're going to focus on today is something that we didn't get into in depth in the last time. At an early age, Leanne could assist those crossing over, creating a safe and loving place and space for the death experience to unfold. She fostered this natural esoteric ability for decades, working from the side of spirit to support both loved ones and strangers who would ask for assistance. Years of this work revealed to her how to access higher dimensions of awareness, which she organically integrated into her branding and marketing work and channeled frequency into her MetaArt paintings. And last time we focused a lot on her MetaArt paintings. And if you're watching on YouTube, you can see a little bit of that behind her at this point. But if you go back to episode 108, you'll see a lot of her work. In fact, she asked you to focus just on her work and not on her while she had our discussion. She's also a grandmother of 4, a mother of 3, and a passionate Pittsburgh Steelers fan. When not traveling and sharing her work, she is nestled in her art studio in the hills of Western Pennsylvania. So, Leanne, maybe just give us a capsule version of your spiritual journey, and then we'll jump into all this death doula work.
Yeah, that sounds great. That sounds great. I will update that intro because now I'm a grandmother of 5, not 4.
Oh,
So I've
okay.
added a
Congratulations.
whole handful. But thanks. Yeah, in a nutshell, geez, it's just been a journey of decades focusing on human potential and what we're really capable of. That's always had my interest. I do work with Christ consciousness. That's been that's what's accompanied me all these years. And so it's just been this unfolding of a spiritual path and a deeper understanding of what life is that really inspires me and has impassioned my work, whether it's marketing or the paintings or the death doula work. And I've mentioned the death doula work, during different talks, but I've never really spoken directly about it. So I'm looking forward to this conversation
Okay.
today.
Yeah, I had a couple things I wanted to mention to you. A recent interview that I did with Jenny McFadden of Sydney, Australia, uh, on episode 139. So that was 10 episodes before this one will air. Uh, anyway, she does work with what she calls sacred art, uh, which is similar in concept, but very different in expression from yours. But she did watch your episode, and she was very excited about your meta artwork. She's actually going to co-host the Bali trip with me, um,
Nice.
and be teaching sacred art on that trip. So, those of you listening who plan to accompany us on the Bali retreat, you'll get a new treat with sacred art experience. The other thing is that I did an interview with Carol Palmer on episode 135, uh, and she talked about being a death cafe hostess. And I don't know if you've heard of the death cafes.
I
Uh,
have.
okay, uh, but she hosts those, and I've actually set up a couple of those coming up uh, in January of 2026 that we'll be
Okay.
doing on the East End. So, as you talk about your death doula work, I'd like you to maybe talk about the integration of that with the Death Cafe concept and how they differ and the purpose of each. So, okay, I'm gonna stop talking. It's all yours.
Yeah, I think that I think where I want to start with this is what is a death doula? So many people seem to be getting more and more curious about it, right? But it's a topic that I don't know that a lot of people are aware of. I know maybe people are more aware of midwifing, the birth of a human soul, right? A birth of a baby, a birth doula, and death doula work is the same type of work on the other end of life, ushering that soul to the light. And so I wanted to talk first about the concept of death doula because it's more modern in language, but it's ancient in practice. It's indigenous mystical spiritual traditions throughout time. There's always been people that have served as a midwife to the soul, guides who hold space at that threshold between life and death. And just as a birth doula, like I said, assists the arrival, this is assisting the departure, sometimes physically, and what I do is more energetically. So there's death doulas that sit bedside. They're there to support the person actively dying, and they're there to support the family. I do far less of that, actually very little of that, and I work on the side of spirit. And because I work with Christ consciousness, that's what's assisting me in the practice. So even going back to ancient Greece, Egypt, Tibet, there's always been these supporters to help this harmonious transition, make the transition harmonious. And especially where we are right now in humanity, we have forgotten the sacredness of the death process. We look at it as something to be afraid of, to avoid. We don't think about it, we don't talk about it. And so when we go through it, the grief process can be rather intense and very multifaceted. So a death doula, I'm focusing on the person that's actively dying, but it absolutely flows over to the loved ones. I'm focusing on soothing the fear and the resistance of it, preparing the soul for the journey, and supporting opening portals between dimensions. And through that, there's a reassurance, there's a clarity, there's a information for the family members of the one that is passing. I can also communicate with the person's higher self. So if you envision it, the person's, lying on the bed. Again, I'm not physically bedside typically. I'm communicating with different multidimensional aspects of that person. And I kind of look at it like I can go in at this level where they're very much aware of their physical experience, but they're above it, right? And when you hear people that have had NDEs, I liken it to like when the person's like at the ceiling looking at what's happening, right? Like speaking to that person at that multidimensional level. And then I can also talk to their highest self, or what I call their fully realized divine self. So I can get different aspects, and my only role in the process is to ask, what do you require? And it's in those words, what do you require, that any multitude of things can be presented. It can be, oh, well, my sole plan coming into this life was to accomplish A, B, and C, and I only accomplished A and B. Or I'm so fearful that my children are going to fight over my estate. There's again, every experience is completely unique, and therefore the support piece is unique as well.
So I just spent some time with both a doctor uh, and a certified nurse practitioner, both of whom work with hospice folks. And so I'm trying to picture, I guess, how you get involved with a particular client. So have you connected with some hospice groups who know about uh, your capabilities and your experience, and they recommend you? Or, how does somebody come upon, oh yeah, we need a death doula for my grandfather because he's on his way out?
Right, right. Well, for me, it is they just know me. They might not know me directly. They may know, somebody that knows me and I'm recommended to them. So it's definitely a word of mouth thing that
Hmm.
happens. So, and it can be, people come to me from all over the world, and as soon as they contact me, the connections happened, and I'm, you know, I'm working on it. I I can't say no to the work because the energy connections already occurred, but it's definitely word of mouth. I had a website at one point, but that was really more an exercise of me owning this gift because I was avoiding it. Like I didn't wake up one day, Bob, and say, I want to be a death doula and I'm going to find a certification course and I'm going to become certified as a death doula. It came to me very organically through my spiritual experiences and path and exploration, and w actually, I didn't really want it at first. I really kind of fought it. I didn't want to talk to dead people or people that were dying. I didn't like how it felt, and it wasn't until I had 3 family members die quickly that I realized that, "Oh, no, this is a gift, and this is a capacity that I believe everybody has." It's that gut feeling, right? It's that, um, conversations that happen right before somebody dies, that it's like, "Whoa, why do we have that conversation?" Right? Those little threads that we're not conscious of, but we all have levels of this awareness. And so once I realized that and I understood that I'm not only helping the person that's passing, I'm helping their loved ones, for somebody to transition and resolve things, um, or evolve through things that they were supposed to experience in this lifetime and maybe they didn't, but they can do so in that kind of liminal timeless space before they die, that it really is a gift, and it changes the fabric of reality. And I know that when they cross over, they're doing so in a great degree of peace. And so when that happened, when I had that realization, then it was like, okay, I honor every individual that comes to me. So it's usually of a loved one, a family member. Usually it's a loved one when their person passing is, like, hanging on, and now they're, like, accepting the fact that they're gonna pass on, and then it's like, "Leanne, can you help my mother or my cousin or whoever it is?" Because we don't want them to be suffering. So, that's typically or I get a lot of people contacting me that, "Listen, my brother-in-law just committed suicide. Can you check on him?" And make sure, he's fully crossed, make sure he doesn't need anything. So now it's like, absolutely, like, I'm on it.
So in the introduction, I mentioned that you've discovered this gift at a young age. So how did that happen, and what happened afterwards? Is
Yeah,
it
it wasn't that young. I was in my 30s. I was in my 30s, so it wasn't
okay,
it wasn't my childhood. Thank goodness, right? Because I know a lot of people have gifts early in age, and they have to kind of assimilate that, like, make sense of it,
right.
and mine was definitely as a young adult in my early 30s on my path, on my spiritual path. So I was mindfully and consciously choosing to explore, what I was capable of, like, answering that question, like, what am I here for? Who am I? What am I here to do? How am I here to serve? Those were my questions, during that period of my life. And yeah, like I said, I didn't sign up for this. And that's really tells me even more so that, like, my whole childhood, looking back, makes total sense, that I'm doing this work now, but I didn't pick this.
So it picked you. Is that
It
is that the deal?
Absolutely, and it really is the main focus of it is Christ consciousness. And I'm not saying that from a religious sense. I'm saying it from the frequency of unconditional love, of forgiveness and peace and sacred remembrance. It's a vibration that dissolves fear and bridges dimensions, and it helps return the soul to the divine unity that it came from. So when I'm speaking with people, I don't use words like angel and angels in heaven and God. I I don't even define those things. I'm I'm working with Christ, and I see it as light. I see it as source. There's in many cases, not many cases, every case, there's like this white mist that surrounds the person, and they're being um like shown things. I'm not being shown what they're being shown, but and I could look at that white mist and call that those are angels, right? But that's all perception. So I don't really go too much into the perception because we all have our own perception. Because when I'm going through the process, I share it with the loved ones. I send them an audio. So they're experiencing what I'm experiencing, and that's exactly how I describe it. Or oftentimes, the way the experience is for me is I am me, I am here, as I understand it. It's important to have a living human um, soul representing this reality, like being on the same level as the person. And Christ consciousness is standing to my right, and there are times that Christ steps forward and washes the person's feet. There are times that I step forward with Christ and wash that person's feet. And there's energy and love and healing that is occurring on an energetic level in that process, I know that that's a visual representation, right? Um, as Christians, we believe that Christ washed people's feet, but there's so much more happening that I don't even understand, and I don't try to understand it. I'm in the feeling of it, and the feeling of it is always that dissolving of fear, that unconditional love. Unconditional it I liken it to, and I'm realizing that it's also looked at scientifically as a shared death experience. IONS, the organization that studies near-death experiences, they study this shared death experience, and I'm coming to understand that my death doula work is the same thing. There's this, um, space that we're together in, and and it's what somebody that's had an NDE that comes back and says, "It's unconditional love," like, I can't even articulate it. That's the space that I'm having the honor to work with an individual in.
So the sense that I get from reading about a lot of NDEs and people's experience is that frequently, they feel that unconditional love, they see the light, they may have a spirit guide taking them somewhere, uh, and that spirit guide could be in the form of an angel, could be in the form of a deceased loved one. Uh, so how do you fit into that mix, and why do you want to fit into that mix? I mean, isn't it enough that there's a spirit guide from the other side? You know, what I guess
Right,
what's
right,
the
right.
importance
No, I
of
think
your function?
yeah, it makes the process more easeful. People hang on to this dimension for lots and lots of reasons.
Yeah.
And and a lot of times it's just historically we've been kind of stripped of the sanctity of what death is, right? Like the typical person does not welcome death. The typical person is very fearful. So there's going to be this kind of tug of war. And so I'm just an added um like element of grace to, again, from this dimension. So the loved ones that are passed on, the angels, they're from that dimension. So it's like we're working in tandem. I'm working more from this 3D world that we live in, right? Because that's where I'm existing. I'm going up higher multidimensionally to communicate with them, but I'm making it more easeful for them to be open to what is available to them so that those spirit guides can come in. And oftentimes, people don't fully cross over. If there's trauma involved, if they died very abruptly, some of their essence can stay here. And we would call those, ghosts, right? We can look at those as a variety of things. And so I can work with people that died a while ago and just check on them. Has any essence of them remained? And allow that essence to fully cross over. So there's it kind of happens in a variety of ways, and it's really just whatever is right for that person.
Yeah. Well, could you share a couple stories of, this experience, uh, without revealing names and just,
Yeah, actually,
just
yeah, I'm gonna grab my phone and see if I can find the one because Um, I can read. if I can find it. Okay, I found it. So this occurred, I don't know, like 4 years ago,
Okay.
and a woman that, again, knew, she met me on a prayer group I was a part of, and it just kinda came out in conversation. I was a death doula. So she called me and she said, "My best friend is actively dying." And my first question is, not a question, I require permission. So somebody has to grant
Mhm.
me permission to call that person in. And I said, um, "Would you like to grant me permission? Because I'm going to use your name then when I call this friend of yours in." And she said, "Oh, no, she can do that. She's coherent. She's very spiritual. And I believe she would want to grant you that permission herself." So that had never happened before.
Yeah.
I knew this was going to be different. And so she went to the hospital, and I was, just on a call. And she actually, I had intuited to have her meditate with a piece of my art, which was unity. And unity, is just that, right? It's going back into the one. And so there's the visual of the art for her to look at, and there's sacred sound with it. So while she was looking at that, I was going in and talking to her in these various multidimensional ways. And now I don't know anything about this woman other than she's actively dying and she's spiritual. Um, she came in, I saw what she looked like visually, and she was wearing what looked like a wedding gown. And I was zoomed to the base of the gown. There were like wildflowers growing. It wasn't lace at the bottom of the ground. It was literal roots and flowers and leaves and vines of wildflowers, and they were like growing up the dress. It was like this phenomenal vision. And she walked in so confident, so like in her power. And now I'm not describing this as it's happening. I describe it after the fact. But so the woman, walks in like that. And I ask, "What do you require?" And this multidimensional space of this woman, very close to her higher self, started articulating to herself on the bed this message. And I will read it. I have permission to read it. Um, so now, okay, so picture it, right? Like, this woman's dying. She's in the bed, and this is her higher self sharing the following: "I am here to tell you, to tell me, that this space is full of beauty, not in the beauty we would see with our eyes, but only felt with the heart. I am here and everywhere, and all there is love. This love will permeate everything and everyone around me, for this I choose. I am a teacher of an origin I may only come to understand now, and that is perfect and fine and good. You see, this understanding that there is no death is true, and yet there is more. It is a gift beyond reckoning, the joy in being within the dewdrop, the air and the feathered wing. There is a peace that only those places can hold. I have done all I came here to do. I have lived fully, not without regrets, but that is the human experience. I am in a place of honoring the position I carried in this world, seeing all I touched and all I offered beyond my understanding at the time. I am within my own grace, centered within my full being of my divinity, not my physical form. And this is good. My arms are open and full of grace. My heart is ripe with understanding, and I am at peace. And I ask again, is there anything you require? Simply to share this, The parts of me that know fear are loved. The parts of me that doubt or do not trust are loved. And the parts of me that were not heard, I am now emanating throughout time and space. And the returning response is love. Pain, doubt, and fear leave me only to be love. This is the legacy I held as a child and even prior within the womb. I know myself now. I am love.
How beautiful.
Beautiful, right? And I can't begin to explain what the energy is when these things are occurring. She heard that. I spoke it, right? So she heard that recording. Her loved ones heard it, and she died a few hours later. Um, I came to find out later that she never married. She had a beloved. He was there. They She never got to wear that wedding dress, but the way she came in, she was absolutely in this wedding gown. And so whatever that means, that holds some importance to her, right? As her essence. And so now that was a really unique situation because that woman was living very consciously and she um, was spiritually ready, right? Oftentimes it's not that. Oftentimes it's um, resolving things that from again this side of the veil, right? So that they can be met on the other side of the veil more graceful and more easeful, if that makes sense.
Hmm. Yeah. Oh, yeah, I wanted a story just because sometimes it's difficult to picture what it is you're talking about uh,
Right.
in in this reality. How does it really happen? And I can imagine that that was uh, really a comfort to her and the people around her, just to hear that.
That was a profound experience for me to experience that for myself. Most of the time, again, it's somebody that one story that comes to mind, a woman, her mother was in her 90s. She hadn't, eaten in 2 weeks. She was non-responsive. And it's oftentimes that's when the family members are ready to call me
Mhm.
because now they just want to see their loved one not suffer anymore.
Yeah.
But until then, they're still like holding on, right? Like maybe they'll come back or whatever. And so, she just said, I need to know the person's name and their date of birth, and that's all I need. And a lot of times, and people, I will say, whatever, your daughter, Mary or whatever, has asked me to check on you. That's my
Mm.
question, right? To bring them in. Would you like to come in? And to me, it's this like liminal space. There's no walls or anything, but it's definitely like a space. And oftentimes people won't at first. They'll be like,
Oh.
again, though, that white mist is there, and then I'll just check back, and it might take a time or two, but they eventually come in. And again, it's a space of unconditional love, so it's a really great place to be. And she this elderly woman came in, and I just said, your daughter Mary asked me to check on you. What do you require?" And she said, it was very simple. She said, "I don't wanna leave because I'm afraid my son and my daughter are gonna fight over my estate." And, I mean, that's a very valid concern, that a person can have. And
Mhm.
I found myself simply saying, "Oh, no, no, no. No, there's no worry, that won't happen." Even the energy of that isn't me, it's this Christ consciousness energy, right? It's that unconditional love, that no fear type of thing. I can feel that energy coming through." And she just kind of looked at me and she said, "Oh, really?" Like, "Oh, yeah, no, you don't have to worry about that. That's not gonna happen." And her daughter texted me about 45 minutes later that she had passed. And so it could be something just that simple,
Yeah.
or it can be something that, um, I just recently had a situation where this gentleman never married. He never had a family. He never had children. And he spent a good bit of time in this space with just that mist around him, just that unconditional love, and he was just looking so good and so happy, and 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 then the next time I checked on him, he was, like, pacing, and it was, "What's up?" And it was this, "Well, my soul intended to experience the love of a family, a wife, and children, and I always was fearful, and I didn't take those chances that were gonna mean I was going to have that experience in life." And all of a sudden, there was a movie screen, and I said, "Okay, well, you can watch your life unfold, and when those intersecting points come that you recoiled and didn't take a chance, go ahead and take that chance." And left him, and when I checked back, I knew he had done that, and he was standing there, and he was like, "Okay, I'm good." And I knew that he could peacefully pass. Now, I also know that his loved ones were waiting for him, and, um, they were waiting right there to greet him.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, it's incredibly, um You know, it's just incredibly sacred work.
Yeah. Now, just in reference to that example you just gave, where my head went was that you're talking about life as a multi-dimensional experience with limitless possibilities. And he was able to go back and take advantage of possibilities that he hadn't pursued. And because he was able to do that, then he found peace. Is that a correct interpretation?
Yeah, I mean, and I try not to interpret them. I just know that for that soul, that's what was what he needed or what assisted him in crossing. I don't I don't think too much about it because I don't have those answers, right? Like I don't know um what that means for him. I just know that at that point he was ready. He was fulfilled. And I do believe that we come with a soul kind of contract with
Mhm.
life and with people, and sometimes we don't fulfill everything that we agreed to fulfill. So I see that happen often. It happens often with people that um that there was something that they knew from a soul level that they needed to check off their list, that they
Yeah,
didn't. Or oftentimes it can be just kind of confusion, or there have been times where there's a darkness around them. And um, like I said, sometimes the person's not actively dying. Sometimes they just very recently died. And oftentimes with suicide, when I call that person in, there could be this one gentleman. He came in, and there was like this darkness standing behind him. And I don't look at that as evil or anything like that. There was like a shadow behind him. And I said, "What do you require?" And he was like, I don't know. Like, I'm kind of confused where I am." Like he wasn't clear on what he needed. And I just said, "Do me a favor and turn around." And he turned around and he looked at that, and he turned back around and his eyes were huge. It's like, "What is that?" And I don't know what it is, but I knew that accompanied him from the time he was born.
Mhm.
I right? It's like, it's always been there. Are you maybe ready to have that not be here? And he was like, "Yeah, please. Yeah." And that again, white mist comes in and it dissolved it and it was gone. And his whole, like, even how he looked to me was completely shifted. He was at fully at peace and he was able to completely go to the light. So I know that the person I conveyed it to then conveyed it to, his loved ones. And, I know that that information brings their family members peace.
Yeah.
Especially in something like a suicide. Yeah.
So early on in our discussion, you said something like, it isn't like I just suddenly decided, oh, I want to get training to be a death doula. So is there training to become a death doula? And did you go through it, or do you train people on how to do this?
So, yes, there is training to be death doula. There's an association, there you can get certified in it. I did I did not do that, so I can't speak to that, but I do know that more and more people, um, are seeking that. I was just at the IANS conference, and numerous people come up to me. It just seems like it's in the awareness right now of there's this thing called being a death doula, and I don't know why, but I feel really drawn to learn more about it. And maybe, I'm like, I look at them like, okay, because on some level you're a death doula already. Like, I believe it's something within a person, right? That kind of, the inner workings are there. But mine happened very organically throughout my spiritual journey. And I just kind of organically figured it out. Again, it wasn't like, "Oh, man, I didn't sign up for this." Like, I didn't wanna do it. But, but there are a growing number of organizations. I don't personally train people. Um, I I do this as people come to me. And I mean, I just lost a loved one, and during that process, somebody called me from my somebody I know from South America, needs help with their mother. But Leanne, you have a lot on your plate. And I'm like, oh no, see, the connection's already made. So, of course I'm going to, to ask her, will you give me permission? And, got her mother's name and birth date. And yeah, worked with her.
Yeah.
That individual was very early on her dying process. She's gonna be around for months, but the information that I was able to support her around was gonna really, um, make her last months far easier.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So when you take someone through one of these experiences, is it energy depleting for you, or does it contribute to your energy? I mean, I know that like doing Reiki is not an energy depletion process because you're feeling that energy yourself. So, uh, but there are other spiritual practices like being a medium. I understand can deplete your energy. So, what about this experience? What's it do to you energetically?
Well, I'll answer that in 2 parts. Because early on, when I wasn't really honoring it, I I wanna say it depleted me, because I was resisting it.
Uh,
And once I understood that, um, that this is what I'm able to do and this is the way in which I can serve, and I began really honoring it, then that flipped. And because I get to be in that space of unconditional love.
yeah,
I get to. I get to feel that all the time and witness it and witness what it does for a human being that, I mean, I've had instances where an individual has made up for doing rather bad things to their loved ones. They couldn't obviously go back in time and fix something that they did 40 years prior, but in that instance, he was literally carrying this weight on his shoulder of the guilt and the remorse of pain he caused other people. And in that instance, and I'm saying it, but it's Christ consciousness saying it. Like, I'm not thinking, what does this person need? Like, it
Yeah.
isn't me at all. I'm the human conduit, right? Was, well, you can carry that. That looks mighty heavy. And but you have another option. Well, what is that? What's my other option? I did these deeds. And I'm not in a
Mhm.
position now that I can even speak to somebody to ask for forgiveness. And it was, you can take that with you, and when you get to the other side, you lay it at their feet. You lay it at each one of those souls' feet that you harmed. And by you owning it and carrying it, you're actually carrying it away from them. So you're actually taking that burden off of them in this life experience so you can lighten their load energetically and you take all of that with you. But when you get to the other side, I promise you, you get to lay it down. And he had to think about it, but he did that. And what the family members told me was they felt a tremendous lifting of that heaviness that they had been carrying their whole life, right? Because it was abuse and it was when they were children, and so he was able to gift them that he couldn't have gifted them when he was alive. He was just not capable of looking at
Yeah.
what he did. Right? So they can be really big, profound things like that, or they can be really simple things like my kids are going to fight over my estate. Like they
Yeah.
can, it's just this huge array of possibility. Like everyone's individual, and so every one of these experiences is individual as well.
Yeah. So when you're
Yeah.
responding to somebody, uh, 'cause you've asked them the question and they've responded with what they see as the issue, and you come up with these very inspired recommendations or suggestions. Do you feel that those are coming from you at all, or they're all coming from Christ consciousness and you're just being a channel?
It's not me at all. I'm not
Yeah.
coming up with any of them. It's Christ consciousness. It's unconditional love.
Yeah.
Sometimes I don't even wanna say Christ consciousness because I think that has a connotation to it, right?
Right.
It is literally unconditional love, and I'm not capable as a human being to come up with any of it, right? It's happening it's happening through me, and I'm a witness of it.
Yeah.
That's what it is, and so it's always profound to me.
Yeah.
And oftentimes it will be um, like a several step process, like a person comes to a realization and something's required, and then it's always this like mist. And then I step out, and then, 24 hours later, I'll check back in with them. Um, so it can happen over several encounters. There was one instance where the person died and the husband died, and the wife about 2 days later said, "Can you check on him?" And it's the only time it's ever happened. I checked on him and I'm like, he's good. He's not here. He's he's completely crossed over. And what's so fascinating about that is that a couple months later, that same woman called me and she said, I'd like to commission a MetaArt painting. I'm I'm opening a healing center and I don't know what the painting should be, but I know I need a commission painting. And when I do my meta insights process, when I'm asking, what is this painting? It was her husband. And he went into great detail on the last 2 months of his life. He had a brain tumor, and so he was blind, and I found out afterwards, after I shared this with his wife, for, like, weeks, he was just, like, talking nonstop, but he was talking nonsense, like, he couldn't form words anymore, but he was very, very animated and passionate, and she felt bad because she's like, "Wow, like, you're definitely trying to tell me something, I don't know what it is,"
Yeah.
and he explained to me I was I was over there, and I was, like, so freaking excited, and I was trying to tell her so badly, and so he was able to tell me at that point everything he was trying to tell her for those weeks before he died, and that was profound.
Yeah,
That was
sure. Gee.
yeah, so it is, it's like it's super fascinating for me to have these experiences, so and it just makes me understand life that much better and death that much better. And I just feel like it's it's gifted me so much for my life.
Yeah.
Probably, more than that short encounter that I've been able to provide people.
So this understanding of death uh, takes me back to the opening of the show when I talked to you about a death cafe, because in a
Mhm.
death cafe people sit around and it's not a grief group. It's basically for people to talk about their perceptions of what death is and to get other people's perceptions of death and see that there are many different perceptions about what death is all about. And I see what uh, as something that would really help a lot of people in their understanding of death. Uh, so I guess the question is, have you ever participated in a death cafe? Would you consider participating in one?
I I never have. I'm aware that they exist and I would absolutely. I I have thought, throughout the years, like, should I volunteer at a hospice facility? Like, there's, and I kind of just always go back to this is my lane. I know my lane.
Yeah,
My lane is, um, what do you require? But this is the first time that I've touched on this on talks before, but this is the first time that I've really ever, um, talked to this degree,
yeah.
and so perhaps it's time for me to start doing that more.
Well, I really appreciate your choosing my show to come out of the closet, so to speak, on this. Uh, so the question, that my audience would like answered from you, it's like, what do you need to know? Well, this is what they need to know. Is there a fee involved in asking you to do this process with a loved one? And uh, how should they consider, or what are the considerations of them trying to contact you and ask you to help them with this process?
Right, right. Well, again, it's just like referrals. I actually don't charge. I don't feel the work I do isn't in this world, and this world involves money, and I
Yeah.
just like there's a disconnect when I try to connect money to it. I will present to people if you feel inclined, if it because money is energy, and I get that as
Mhm.
well. But, when I'm working with these people, they're in their most fragile
Yeah.
states,
Right.
and so putting a dollar figure to that, again, this just doesn't feel right. So I say to people, if you would like to make a love offering, that's great. Um, if you'd like to, if you can pray for me, you can pray for me with, and I'll tell you what you could pray for me about, kind of thing. If you'd like to
Yeah.
thank me in that way. The most one of the recent ones that's in South America, I may be going to her location, and she said, "Well, how about when you come here, if I am your tour guide, I would love to be there for you in a foreign land you've never been in before." And I'm like, "Okay, that's
Yeah.
great." Right? Like there's different ways to bless each other. And some people, do feel inclined to, pay me money, which I even say like, and that's up to you, whatever that is. Just I feel like it's almost like paying it forward or just a love offering. So um I I yeah, I can't make a business out of it.
Yeah.
It's not something I can make a business out of. And so it isn't something I make a business out of. I do marketing, I'm an artist and I sell my paintings. This is just something that that when it occurs, I stand ready to assist.
Yeah.
I really wanted to talk to you about this, to not to drum up more business, to I just want people to understand more that the death isn't this big, horrible, ugly thing that happens to us. We choose when we come into this life, and we choose when and how we leave.
Mhm.
And I think I just wanted to say that. You know, recently my brother passed, and I had a conversation with the doctor. The ICU doctors wanted to keep him intubated for a few more days, and his main physician came to me and he said, "I don't agree with them because your brother's failing, even being intubated. We're prolonging things." And I literally heard my brother say, "Take the tube out."
Yeah.
So I articulated that. And the doctor's response was like, "Are you sure you want to think about that? Like you want to, talk to other people in your family?" And the other people in my family were sitting right there and agreed. And but I looked at him and I said, I understand you sign an oath to keep people alive, but there needs to be this natural place in the process that when you know that you've done everything you can, that there's another individual or group that can step in to make that next step more peaceful and graceful. Like, so like that piece is missing right now.
Yeah.
And this energetic death doula work serves that purpose.
Yeah.
After I lost 3 family members, I inadvertently was at an event. Actually, it was uh, l- this Lisi's event, or in a mutual friend of ours. But anyways, I'm in line, a food line, and I recognize the surgeon, and she recognizes me, and it's like, "Oh, you lost 3 family members." And I started talking to her about, yeah, if the medical profession could have a step that is the most logical step, like, okay, we know we've done everything we can do. Yes, they bring in palliative care, and palliative care does a beautiful job of keeping the person comfortable and answering any questions. But if there was somebody there to support them in this way, like, I believe that should be there for people to have.
Yeah.
And beyond, just like last rites or anything like that, somebody there to accompany that person to to easily or, you know, most gracefully transition.
Yeah.
So I think that's why I just really wanted to have this talk with you
Well,
to just say
typically, and we're at the end of our time at this point, I would ask you to leave the audience with some words of wisdom, and I think you just did.
that's honestly what I think is the most important thing to
Yeah.
share.
So
Yeah.
go ahead and repeat that, and we'll call it a day. Other than the fact that, is there contact information you want to leave with my audience, or would you just as soon not?
I would assume not. I
Okay.
think that it, um, something that, I can only do so much of this work,
Right,
right? This is
right,
something
sure.
I can't do 8 hours a day, and just trust that I feel like it's again, this was less of me, um, drumming up business. It was more of I just wanted to share what I know as an
Right.
in educational piece. We do not have to fear death.
Mhm.
We are accompanied every step of the way, and I just wanted to bring the awareness of this level of death doula work
Yeah,
to individuals that are here to hear it.
yeah, that's
Yeah,
marvelous. Well, thank you
thanks,
so
Bob.
much for coming back on the program, uh, and give us an in-depth look at death. Uh, I really appreciate it, and I'm sure my audience does. So, audience,
Good. Well,
take what you've heard and whatever resonates with you, incorporate it into your life or your death. And until you're ready to deal with it, just put it on a shelf and bring it down when you are ready. So until next time, this has been your spiritual journey.